Welcome everyone to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. Your host Travis and John. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. 2 days since we last trained, so my body's starting to feel normal. How you doing?
I was hurting a little bit after we did back-to-back days. It was what? Wednesday, Thursday we did?
Yeah, I mean,
2 days?
our goal was 2 days, right? So we had to
Yeah.
stick to it.
I know. In the beginning of the year, you don't want to abandon your goals.
I mean, not in the first week for sure.
No, not within the first week. Yeah, absolutely. So John and I went. We on Tuesday we didn't go because I don't remember why we didn't go. But we didn't go Tuesday, and then
It was family. Family prevented us.
yeah. And then Wednesday we're like, we have to go. We have to go on Wednesday. So we went Wednesday, and then we're like, okay, now we have to go Thursday.
Yeah.
And 2 days back to back was a little bit of a rough one. So I don't know how people do it at our age, because I'm up there also.
We're going to build up to it. Next week's going to be 4 days, and I'm going to say that now, so I have to do it.
Yeah, put it out in the universe because
Right.
I'm definitely not doing that.
Yeah, you are. We'll see.
No.
You'll get 3 for sure.
No, maybe no. Man, I mean, if I don't work Saturday, I'll probably go Saturday, and that counts, right? Does that count?
Yeah. Saturday would count for sure.
Okay, so that's where we're at now. Training at the beginning of the year is always hard, especially because you're coming back from taking time off or doing stuff with the family, going on vacation or something, right? So
Mhm.
it's nice to be back on the mats. So
Yeah. Do you think we should talk about some problems or some difficulties people might have on starting jiu-jitsu?
yeah, so to John, great segue. That's why you're the co-host of the best practitioner or beginning practitioner podcast out there.
Yes.
Today, first, let's get into our beverages of the day. I have the Ghost Swedish Fish, if you guys can see.
That sounds horrible.
It's delicious. The Ghost Swedish Fish energy drink, 0 calories, which is great. No, sorry, 5 calories. So it doesn't really break my fast, which is why I drink them. And then how many grams of caffeine are in here?
Probably like 200.
I think it's 200. Yeah, 200 milligrams of caffeine in this little can. I love Swedish Fish. They're the best candy in the world. So that's why I drink this. What do you have, John?
I have Celsius sparkling cola. I don't drink soda. Pretty much I just drink water, coffee, and beer, wine, and whiskey. So, but I love this thing. It's sparkling cola. They're hard to find. I can only find it at one store. I find the other flavors everywhere. But
Yeah.
this one's nice, man. It's like pretty healthy. No corn syrup, no aspartame, no preservatives. It's pretty good, and it's 200 milligrams of caffeine.
We used to drink them when we were in San Diego,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
There was a gas station or a little convenience store next to John's apartment, and we would go there and get 2 or 3 of them and take them to work. And John would complain because some of them would make him have to poop.
Yeah. They're great. I wouldn't recommend drinking it like right before class, maybe an hour before.
Yeah, but so that's our beverages of the day. Like John alluded to before that, we want to go over. This is gonna be a 2-part series, and we want to go over 6 things that are intimidating, that can be intimidating when you first start off in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. John and I have experienced, almost all. I would say all 6 of them. Because when you're starting in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it can be intimidating for many people, especially if it's your very first martial art and you've never participated in any contact sport, whether it's football, hockey, what are some other ones? Soccer has a little bit of contact in there. They flop pretty good. But we're going to list a few challenges that new practitioners to BJJ can face, So we're going to go through 1 through 3 today. Maybe we'll go through 1 through 3 today, and then on the next episode we'll go over. So what we want to kind of do is we're going to give an overview of what we want to talk about. Is we'll list the fear, and then kind of like how John and I overcame it, and what we did, and whether we're still facing it now.
Yeah, and I don't think you can necessarily get rid of some of them, but
Yeah.
you can at least mitigate it a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, this is how we've combated them in our years of being in the gentle art. That's sometimes not
The
so
gentle
gentle.
art.
So without any further ado, John, what is the first common fear in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Well, I get this a lot when I talk to people about jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, hey, man, you want to come try it out? And pretty much the first thing they say is like, I don't want to get injured.
Yeah.
And And that's a real concern, right? Like, I mean, we've been doing it for years now, and I've been injured doing jiu-jitsu, you
Yep,
know?
me too.
Like, some of them are permanent. It's never going to get better.
Yep.
But you can mitigate that, and I think, for one, you just got to get in there and you got to do it, right? And you got to be aware of what's going on. I think you can choose your partners wisely.
Yeah.
You can prepare yourself for it, you know. It's easier. It's kind of easy for me to say that now because I have no ego when it comes to jiu-jitsu anymore. That's gone. So,
Yeah.
you know, you always hear tap early, tapped off. And,
Yep.
I'm almost clairvoyant now. I'll tap before you even get there. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I wrestled. I kind of talk about it a little bit. I wrestled in high school for just one semester. And I don't know what made me want to wrestle. I don't remember. But that was, a big fear. And I still face it today. Like, I was JV. I never got to wrestle in any matches because I wasn't that good. I was good enough to, feel like I would be able to give someone hell in the training room, but I never had any matches. But like a big fear of mine right now is getting injured because, I have 2 babies, I have a teenager, I have a full-time job, I have all these things that my family relies on me for. And so like the fear of injury is like real for me. That's why I haven't competed yet too. And it's still probably the number one reason why I haven't competed is because there's too much on the line for my family if I get injured, right? But the way I mitigate it is I choose my partners wisely. When I first started jiu-jitsu, and when you guys, I'm sure you guys can agree to this. When you first start jiu-jitsu, you feel like you can't say no to people.
Right.
That's the first common thing that, people don't want to be rude. If someone asks you to roll, you feel like you are obligated to say yes, whether it's a higher belt or lower belt. But I'm here to tell you right now, that's not the case. If you do not feel comfortable rolling with someone because of the fear of injury, that is perfectly okay. You can say no to people.
I think I think the first thing they do is just avert eye contact.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is it like your first step? You're like, no. Then you'll get comfortable. You're like, no, I'm good, man.
Yeah. I just like there are people in our academy that I don't roll with because maybe later on down the line when they learn to control themselves better, I'll roll with them. But the problem is like, these are big, strong people. I'm a big, strong person too. And I just don't want to deal with that. Sometimes I'll roll with them every once in a while, but it's not like it's a common thing for me. So if you're first starting and you have the fear of injury, whether it's you're afraid you're going to injure yourself or someone else is going to injure you, there are safety protocols out there and things you can do to mitigate that. The more you show up, the more you feel comfortable on the mats in the first place. The more you roll, the more you feel comfortable, right, John? And you're less likely to get injured because you'll be able to combat these things as they start happening.
Yeah, and I would say listen to your body.
That's a good one.
What I used to do a couple years ago, if I was injured, I would just roll anyway, like whatever, I'll heal later. Now, if I go to class and, if we've been doing it for an hour and we're doing a lot of positional, that's pretty tough. It almost feels like a roll. If my shoulders are flaring up or if I'm feeling some weakness in the shoulder or something like that, I won't roll at the end of class. That would have bothered me a few years ago. But I just think you got to listen to your body and talk to your partner. Let them know if you got something going on. Like, hey, man, don't crank on the shoulder. You know, just be open and honest. And, if you're going to roll with someone and you're really worried about getting injured, just be defensive. Don't worry about so much attacking. Just worry about defense and making sure you don't get hurt.
And honestly, one of the big things that can stop you from getting injured is, like John said, tapping early, tapping often. The tap is, if you're rolling with someone and they don't respect the tap, that's something completely different. But if you are in a position to where you feel you're unsafe or you feel like there might be an injury, you can easily just say, hey, hold on a second, I need to move this, you know what I mean? Or you could just tap and then restart, you know what I mean? The other night, I was rolling with one of our white belts, and my toes had got tangled up in his lapel. And I just stopped him and said, yo, I'm not going to tell you to move your position or anything like that, but my toes are like wrapped up in your lapel. I need to get my toes out of your gi before I break a toe. You know what I mean? And we just held in the position for a second. I moved my foot, and then we started going right back. You know what I mean? And that could be a difficult thing for you because you could think, oh, this guy's just trying to, he's going to think I'm just trying not to get swept right now, or I'm not trying to get submitted or anything like that. But there's, look, in the training.
You think he's doing the teaching moment right
yeah,
before
yeah,
he
yeah.
gets
Let me
submitted?
tell you something. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
But if I look, I'm not going to get injured for practice. Like, if I'm going to get injured, it's going to be because of like a competition or something like that. I don't want to get injured just going to my Mondays, Thursdays class to the point to where I can't train, right? So
Right.
this fear of injury is a real thing. It's something that we still go through every day, but you have to be open and honest, like Jon said, to your training partners and to yourself. You can't let other people's ideas of how you should be as a practitioner push the way you train. You know what I mean? You can't do that, because then you're just going to be, one, trying to please everyone else. Two, you're going to be putting yourself in situations where you don't want to be in. And then three, you're not being the person you want to be. You're being the person that you think other people want you to be.
Yeah, and I think this might lead into our second topic, which is fear of failure.
Yeah, man. I'm going to tell you what, as a white belt, the fear of failure is real, man.
It is.
It's crazy. You think that tap that someone got you with is you failing as a practitioner. You know what I mean? It's trial and error in jiu-jitsu at every level. I just saw a video on YouTube the other day of Gordon Ryan in the gi tapping to a brown belt to a knee from a knee bar, right? No matter what you're doing, you're gonna get tapped at any level. Why we fear failure? It's kind of like, it's weird to me, because it is part of the journey,
And I think it'll really stunt your growth. I think that was probably a problem I had early on, is so worried about getting tapped that I was purely defensive and I wasn't putting myself out there going for submissions. And, it probably hurt the game, those first couple years. It just so worried about that tap because you felt like that was a loss. You just lost, but really you're losing because you're not trying. You're not trying to get those submissions. You're not putting yourself in those positions. And, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and then, you have that fear of like not being good enough when you tap. You're like, maybe you just got promoted to blue belt. Maybe you just got a stripe on your white belt and you feel like a lower belt shouldn't be giving you as hard of a time as they are. But as seasoned blue belts, let me tell you, just because it was like right after we got promoted, I felt like I could not give up anything to a white belt, because then it was delegitimizing my blue belt. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, a 4-stripe white belt and a brand new blue belt are the same person. One just recently got promoted.
It's just one's hungrier than the other.
Yeah, you gotta, once you get that blue belt, you get a target on your back, and then your fear of failure is real.
Yeah, I mean, I put myself in their shoes. You remember, we're white belt struggling, trying to get to that blue belt, and like, hey, if I was rolling with a blue belt, they were getting 100% because I felt like I needed that so I could get where I needed to be.
Right, and not only that, but then you're kind of competing with your peers, even though inside the training room, you shouldn't be competing with your peers, but you should have a competitive element to your roles. And, no one wants to be that guy who's freaking trying hard, putting in, the work 100%. And then you're constantly feel like you're failing because you're getting tapped all the time, or even not only that, but I think there's other aspects of failure that go into jiu-jitsu also that are outside of the tap, whether it's not learning a technique properly, just not gaining the knowledge or being a slower learner than others. I feel that is also an aspect of, the feeling of failure that people go through, Jon, right? Like, because you've admitted you're a slower learner.
Yeah, 100%. It takes me a while to get that conceptual stuff, and I'm like, man, but once I get it, I'm fine. It takes a while. I'm not as sharp as some people are when it comes to like body movements and tying it in together like that. And it used to not be that bad. Maybe it's, when I had that stroke, that might have affected it a little bit.
Yeah.
I have a harder time, definitely going with the dumb side of the body, as everyone calls it. But I'm honest with it. It doesn't bother me when I'm in class. If I got a question, I have no problem stopping it and asking something dumb.
Today's episode of Elbows Tight Podcast is brought to you by the Amino Co. Jon, go ahead and tell the listeners at home a little bit about Amino Co.
So I'm using Heal. It's to help with recovery. It's 100% science backed. What I like about it is it triggers lean muscle growth and repair 4 times more efficiently than any other protein source. It reduces muscle atrophy and improves physical function after surgery. It helps maintain a healthy inflammatory response by acting mTOR. I highly recommend everyone go to AminoCo, look it up online, check out the science-backed details. It's all there. So far, I really like it. It tastes great. It mixes easy, and I'm looking forward to using it for a couple months.
If you guys want to check out Heal and check out the science, go to aminoco.com/elbowstight. Once again, that is aminoco.com/elbowstight, and use code elbowstight at checkout for 30% off. Every new purchase does get a free gift as well. Thank you, AminoCo, for sponsoring this episode.
Yeah, it's a progress. You can't look at your journey and think when you first start you're gonna be this world champion, amazing at everything, unless you have, you're a D1 wrestler, you've been an athlete your entire life, you've had some sort of grappling experience outside of jiu-jitsu. If you're just the average person like John and I, this is like your first real martial art that you've actually dedicated yourself to, you fell in love with, you should not fail tapping, you should not fear tapping, you should not fear asking questions. You should not fear like you're a failure because you're not grasping something that your coach is teaching you. Like everyone's different, My fear of failure in jiu-jitsu is not living up to my standard of where I feel like I should be, right? And that's so subjective. That is so anecdotal. You know what I mean? Like it's honestly something very stupid, but I'm honest with myself if I'm like, man, I don't understand this, and I probably should. And then I start getting self-conscious about it, and I'm like, am I a failure? Like, or if you take time off,
yes.
Man, what you want to talk about fear of failure?
Talk about rough,
man.
Yeah, and I'm feeling that right now. It's really, it's been a good solid, pretty much a year. I was barely on the mats, maybe 2 or 3 times. So going back, I know I'm gonna get tapped often. Doesn't bother me in the least. I'm coming in, I'm looking stupid. Coach is going to grab me to show something. I'm not going to remember it, and it's going to come back to me. It's just going to take time. But I just think you're learning something brand new, and it's not an easy sport. If it was, everyone would do it. The retention in it's not the greatest because it's difficult. You just got to keep going. For me, what I perceive as a failure for jiu-jitsu is if I just don't go. I need to go.
Oh, man, that's a good point. That's a really good one.
Me. I'm failing if I don't go.
Yeah. And then, like, how do you overcome your fears, right? Like whether it's in the moment. I mean, failure to me becomes very real also, that feeling of failure when I'm in a position and I'm like, holy crap, what did I just do to get here? Like I rolled with Cody the other night and he was just smashing me, and rightfully so. Cody's 6'5", 220 pounds, amazing athlete, brown belt, right? And there was absolutely nothing I could do to give him a challenge that night. And I felt like a freaking failure afterwards, man. I was so frustrated, once again, because I felt like I should have been giving him a harder time, and it was unfair to me. So how do you combat something like that, John?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the way I try to combat my failures is, for one, I try to hold myself accountable. So I'll mention to you what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I'll say it on the air. I'll talk to people in the gym. I'll make commitments like, hey, can I come in at 3:30? Anybody want to train earlier? And that's how I try to do it. Because I like to be a man of my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm just honest in the gym, like I feel like if other people know what my goals are, it helps me stay accountable. And like I said, for me, failure is just not being there.
Yeah.
So I feel like with that added pressure, it makes sure I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't feel like failure is a negative thing in your journey. You are going to fail. Like, it is one of those things. You have to accept it and learn from your failures. Everyone fails. Like, whether it's they fail at giving up a position, whether they fail at winning a tournament, showing up. You're gonna fail, but it should not. You should have. Let me say it like this: like you should feel some kind of way about failure, whether it's like you don't want to fail or you're accepting of failure. You should not be okay with failure in a sense because you want to improve. You shouldn't be to the point to where I don't really care if I win or lose, right? Because then you're not going to progress. The feeling of the fear of failure is good in a sense of like you should want to try to not to fail, but you should be accepting of failure when it happens.
Yeah, this isn't a finite game. This is it never stops. So once you're on this jiu-jitsu journey, there is no end.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if you could really fail it. You just might have a slow progression. And the only way you would actually fail is if you stop doing jiu-jitsu.
Ooh, that's a good point. Blue belt blues are a real thing. You quit at blue belt, you know.
And look, I've come real close, a couple times. It's having friends and staying involved, and that'll continue to help you get over that.
Yeah, which leads into our third one and the final one for this episode, which is great because that feeling of physical challenges that you went through, Jon, right? BJJ requires a certain level of like fitness and mobility, and a lot of those out there are, out of shape or they have physical limitations like Jon when he came back from surgery. And it could be like a real challenge for those people to, one, get into jiu-jitsu or to get back into jiu-jitsu, right, Jon?
Yeah, 100%. When you're working out and you've been doing it for a while and you get in shape you want, your jeans are fitting good, your cardio's great, and you're like, man, I can have that cheeseburger and fries. And then you get back onto this, and then you realize a year later, you're right back to where you were in that horrible shape, and now you got to rebuild all over again.
Yep.
That's how it feels for me in jiu-jitsu right now. It's essentially like Travis will tell you, he sees I'm dying. The cardio is just, if it's a full 5-minute roll, I am gassed at the 2-minute mark. And, I understand it's completely from being off the mats, and it's a huge challenge. You just got to, the tools to overcome that, for one, is rolling. And I'm so glad that they're incorporating the rolls into the class now, because I feel like if it's just a regular class, they get the option, hey, if you want to roll afterwards, you can. I would most likely bounce right afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, 3 roll minimum. Well, now I'm going to do the 3 rolls because you said it's the minimum, and I'm going to do them, and I'm going to die. What do you think?
I think physical limitations is a real thing, and I feel like it's the fastest thing to go when you take a break from jiu-jitsu, whether it's physical limitation of like mobility, whether it's understanding or implementing techniques. Your physical attributes are going to be one of the first ones to go. Just like if you were to like, so what I try to tell Lauderdale, because Lauderdale was like a pretty big bodybuilder when we first started dating, and she took some time away from the gym. She takes, we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have 2 babies. One's 2 years old and one's about to be 9 months old, and we just don't have the time to go to the gym as much as we used to and be as fit as we used to, be as strong as we used to. And that's okay because our priorities are different, right? So we have physical challenges whenever we compare ourselves to who we were and to relations of who we are now, because things are going to be different. So where I'm getting at with this is, even now, even though I don't work out as much as I used to, my base fitness level or my base jiu-jitsu level is immensely higher than it was when I first started. So no matter what, my base level of my ability in the sport of jiu-jitsu is always going to be higher than when I first started. You know what I mean? You have to look at it that way. Like, even if you take a break and you feel that you're a failure or you're not doing good because you took this long break, you have to look at who you were even when you first started to who you are when coming back into it. Because the hardest part is just starting and understanding that, you're not going to have the sport-specific mobility. You're not going to have the sport-specific technique and physicality that you need for jiu-jitsu, but you gain it over time. And once you start gaining, your threshold of like the bare minimum of your body can handle starts to raise as you go more and more. So understanding that, I feel like this is a long ass tangent, but I feel like I'm making sense. In
No,
my head.
it makes sense for
You know,
sure.
You just gotta understand, like, there are gonna be physical challenges when you first start, but once you start, those physical challenges start to mitigate and become smaller and smaller, right?
Yeah, I'd say a month or two of going 2 to 3 times a week. You're going to be so much better than you were that first week. I mean, you probably won't even realize it, but you will months down the road when you see where you're at.
Yeah. And if you know you have these physical challenges like mobility is not permanent. You know what I mean? Like, a lack of mobility is not permanent. You can do things to gain mobility through stretching, yoga. There's the BJJ for yogas. If you use code FWB, you get 40% off. Shout out to Adolfo.
Yoga for rocks. It's one of my favorites. I've used that one a lot.
Yeah. So, there's things out there that can help you with your concerns with your physicality. If your fitness level isn't where you're supposed to, go listen to our episode with Kieran Lefebvre. We talk about, the ways to improve your fitness in jiu-jitsu, right? And one of the best way is to do jiu-jitsu. If you fear that you're not in good enough shape to start jiu-jitsu, I hate to tell you, but you're not. And you never will be until you start jiu-jitsu. There is no amount of training beforehand that's going to get you ready for what jiu-jitsu does, unless you wrestled. That's different. Then you're going to have a different kind of gas tank. But even then, we see it all the time. Like, the wrestlers come in and then they're going 100% balls to wall, and the guy that they're rolling with is like, la da 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 da. So.
Yeah, I think you'd have to also wear one of those oxygen masks. That deprive you, and then maybe go climb Mount Everest, and that'll help prepare you for the jiu-jitsu cardio.
I don't think so. I think what you would have to do is you would have to wrestle chimpanzees for years, for sure. Or bears. You have to be Khabib Nurmagomedov, and you have to go wrestle bears in order to have a fitness before joining a grappling art.
Just don't let fitness stop you.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get it. It's really hard to try to prepare yourself for the fitness level in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, because it even changes with techniques and your ability, right? Your fitness level when you first start compared to when, you are a little bit more seasoned, it's going to be completely different. That's okay, because there's always room to improve when it comes to mobility, whether it comes to your cardio or whatever. So don't feel that you're like, it's not going to be good enough, because you're always going to be improving it. It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect at jiu-jitsu. You're never going to be perfect for jiu-jitsu. So just take the leap.
Yeah. When you say it that way, what it makes me think about is your only tool when you first start is going to be survival. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is you're going to be using all of your energy frantically trying to survive, right? And then after a month or two, instead of wasting all that energy, you're going to have a couple tools in your toolbox to survive. And you're going to go, instead of me just being wild and using all that energy, I can now do these things. I can frame, I can pose. You can do all these other things that require less energy. And that's where you're going to start seeing that you're saving some of that cardiovascular energy. You're not as tired, and then you're slowly going to progress with the more tools you get, and then you're not using as much energy.
Yeah, and that's what's so funny too, is because when you first start and you start rolling with like a seasoned blue belt, right? And how many times, I mentioned a while ago, is my favorite thing to do is to roll with people and then have them like trying, you know what I mean? Then me get up and like, hey, good roll, man, and just like walk away, and they're like, and that's like something that's so fun to me, because those. Looking back, I was like, I know how he feels.
Mm-hmm.
I know how I was in incredible shape, and I was still feeling the same way he was. I hate to sound like a broken record, but young fit Travis, first starting off in his white belt days, was the best shape of his life, and it meant absolutely nothing.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It helps, because I feel like it's more confidence comes, like false confidence comes with you when you are in better shape and you come join jiu-jitsu. But it doesn't help in the point of actually translating into murder yoga.
You know what? Billy deserves a medal for dealing with us when we first started. That poor guy.
Preach,
He had
man.
like 10 white belts just tearing at
Try
him.
to
He was
take
like
his
the
head
only
off.
blue belt there. We were trying to kill him.
Yeah, I know. I feel bad for Billy because that was definitely an experience for him. I'm sure,
Oh
man.
God, I can
So,
imagine.
but hey, those are the first three things. Just to recap, the number one was the fear of being injured. It's a real thing. You have to trust yourself, trust your partners, pick your partners correctly. That's how it's going to work. Number two was what, John?
Fear of failure. Just remember, in my opinion, you're not failing as long as you're going.
Yeah.
Just try to learn from the techniques. Put yourself out there. Don't be too defensive, and I don't think you can fail as long as you're there.
That's right. Failure is only when you don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And then number three was physical challenges. They are real. You're not going to be in good enough shape for jiu-jitsu before you start. Just accept that, understand that, and just start, because that's the only way you're going to get in shape for jiu-jitsu is by doing jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
So don't let your physical attributes, your physical limitations, your mobility stop you from starting your journey, because you're going to look at it when you first start and you're like, why did that take so long? Like, this is incredible, and you'll have a support system there to help with those physical challenges also, and showing you ways to overcome them. So those are the first three. Let us know what you guys think of them. Let us know how you guys overcame these three fears, if you even felt these three fears before starting, and then how you overcame them. So, John, you got anything else?
That's it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll catch you later. Peace.